I was raised by the television. I was born in 1990, and I remember the analog world. It's so different. I think if you told younger people today how it used to be, they would just shake their heads and wouldn't understand. I remember how the phones used to be when they had a little wheel and you had to turn each number and it used to make a really mechanical noise. I remember all of that. I remember that an alarm clock had a crank and you had to crank it and it had bells and the little bells would be hit by a little hammer. Of course, I remember the VHS and the VHS cassettes and everything analog, film cassettes, people and floppy disks. Of course, these are archaic things. They have gone away. A lot of people don't remember. It's pretty much part of history now, but there were some strange times. But back in the day when I was a kid, all we had was the television, of course. And I remember vividly that I used to spend all day, every day, especially the weekend. The weekend was nonstop, just watching cartoons from 6 a.m. until I went to sleep. In a way, it was a magical time. I couldn't wait for the weekends because then there were certain channels that had only cartoons, and it was just an amazing time. But now that I'm older, I can see the negative aspect of this because indeed I spent a lot of time in front of the television. In a sense, I was raised by the television. Now we have the phenomenon of iPad babies and all of these kids who just have every device possible and access to the internet, whatever. And back in the day, you were at the mercy of the television. You couldn't skip ads. You just had to go from channel to channel until you found something that was worth watching. But I was raised by the television. It was a really great thing for my parents because, I was just so mesmerized that I didn't make any trouble. And for my folks, I guess this was the greatest thing ever because, usually people have kids. Their kids are loud. They just run everywhere and make a racket and make a mess of things. I wasn't this way. I guess I was truly hypnotized by the television. And my folks, they really love this because they never stopped me from watching my cartoons. And because of this, I guess they had time for themselves. And, it was basically a win-win situation. Just like today, kids pop out of the womb and they get, a PS5. It to me, now that I'm older, it wasn't ideal because, I was by myself a long time. It is what it is. I spent most of my time alone in front of the television instead of doing something else, interacting with family, whatever. And this is how a lot of years were spent. This is how a lot of years were wasted. This is how basically I squandered my childhood on the television by myself. And then, when video games started becoming popular, to me, It's not the way to live life. It's almost like a tragedy. And today is just today now it has amplified thousandfold, where kids are just bombarded by every single device imaginable, and they have access to everything. So their stimulation is sky high. I only had a television. Today, pretty much everybody is cooked. This is probably one of the main things that will allow humanity to go extinct. That human beings prefer devices instead of being with one another and having experiences, and people are withdrawn more and more. They're becoming more isolated, more segregated from one another. This is how the world is going to end. The world is going to end with every individual being by themselves in a little box in front of a screen. And because I'm a writer, I tend to observe things, and I have done some research the last couple of years. I have observed things like live streaming and influencers and chats, and what kind of culture happens, this phenomenon. I have really spent a lot of time observing all of this, and I can tell you that you can clearly see how people are being shaped. They are being molded. They are being almost indoctrinated by the internet. Okay, just like I was, in a way, brainwashed by the television. But now it is on a level that you cannot even imagine. You just have to watch, for example, chat rooms on live streams, and you can see just how people are exactly the same, and they say exactly the same thing, and everything is nothing but emojis, and everybody is using the same emoji, and everybody is using the same type of expression. And now words are very short, they are foreshortened, and they're using acronyms and ayo on me, no cap, bruh. And it's people have been transformed by the internet in certain archetypes, very few archetypes, and everybody has accepted it. Everybody has embraced it, that this is how you have to be. And now, of course, maybe you have observed this as well, that everybody, pretty much everybody, is exactly the same. They look exactly the same. They wear exactly the same things. Their haircuts are exactly the same. And they talk exactly the same. Their vocabulary is almost inexistent. They use exactly the same catchphrases. And for somebody whose childhood was ruled by the television and cartoons and spending so much time in front of a screen, I can clearly see this phenomenon happening, and nobody seems to be a bit worried as to what is happening. This is exactly what is happening. The internet has turned people from, being diverse and a bit individualistic and etc., into a short list of archetypes and characteristics. It's so mind-boggling, and the best way for you to notice this is to really, analyze live chats in live streams, because it's just you have live streams with tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people, some of them, and you can clearly see that all of these people, as the chat zooms by, you can clearly see that pretty much everybody is saying the exact same thing over and over again. They're repeating the exact same thing over and over again. They're making the same lame-ass pop culture references, the same catchphrases, the same mottos. They're saying the exact same thing over and over again, the same jokes. It's, there is this saying about NPCs and normies and drones. It seems valid to me that a lot of people, they just went with the flow and got swept by the flow, and now they are exactly the same in every regard, especially mentally. The language that they use, which is extremely limited, it shows exactly who they are. It shows exactly how they have been, hypnotized, brainwashed, transformed into a certain archetype. The internet has produced a handful of archetypes, and you can clearly see them everywhere, no matter on what video you click. They are exactly the same. There is no difference. And this is the consequence of just spending your time, all of your time, in front of a screen from the moment you are born. This is exactly what has transpired. Because, I had access to the internet in the early to mid 2000s, 2003, 2004. My childhood was, the television, the big ass television. Okay? But now, the generations after me, they are born with a screen. They are born with Wi-Fi. They come out of the womb with access to absolutely everything, and that is so detrimental. You can clearly see it in society, right? Because I thought I had it bad because I spent so much time in front of the television watching cartoons, and now when I look around, I can clearly see that these younger generations are pretty much cooked in every regard. A lot of people, they can't do anything without their phone. A lot of people can't think for themselves. And now you have things like ChatGPT and all of these AIs who think for people. People don't have to think anymore because every answer is in their phone. Their little AI robot is going to tell them exactly what to do and how to think. It's it's a strange thing to see when all of these premonitions of, technology taking over, all of these, omens you see in fiction where they say, well, AI is going to take over and technology is not really that good. When fiction becomes reality and you wake up in a world where everything is exactly dystopian, that's something else. I can clearly see that humanity is on the precipice now of just being controlled completely by the internet, by screens, and there's no going back. Video games are absolutely everything. Nobody knows anything about anything except video games. When you really check out what people are into, most of the time it's video games. This is how people relate or interact with one another. It has to be through or via video games. If it's not through video games or anime or whatever, people don't really have anything to talk about. So, yeah, it is something else. And of course, these parents, in a way, are to blame because they allowed their kids to waste their time in front of a screen for such a long time, for so many years, that now they woke up and they realized that their kids are pretty much cooked. Just like my parents, be out of convenience, of course. It was comfortable. It was convenient for them to leave me in front of a television because I can remember, folks, I wasn't the type of kid to make a racket, to make a mess. I didn't have a lot of needs. I did not have a lot of demands. All I needed was some food and my cartoons. That was it. People left me alone. And it was so convenient for everybody else because I didn't bother anybody. And I didn't have any, like, I wasn't one of those kids who just bothered people all the time. I kept to myself, and this was absolutely wonderful for my parents, I can imagine, because, they were tired from work and they didn't have the energy to deal with a hyperactive kid, so they put me in front of the television, and there I remained for my entire childhood. And now, kids, they are just born with, all of this high tech. No limits, no conditions. Just take it all and shut up and enjoy your program. Because this is it. It's programming. Everything is programming the individual human being, and you can see clearly that actually, when you really dissect a vast group of people, you can see that there isn't really any true diversity when it comes to personality, characteristics, a mindset, a way of behaving. There are a few archetypes, and that is it. And everybody has embraced one of these archetypes. It's this is the consequence of spending your entire life in front of a screen. Okay? And this is it. This is it. That people today, these kids, they have spent their entire existence in front of a screen. They grew up on the internet. The internet was their parent. The internet educated them. The internet raised these kids. The actual parents were just there in the background, just like my folks were just in the background. Okay? This is it. These kids have spent their entire existence on the internet. And nobody said any different. This is the problem. This is why people now withdraw. This is why people don't mingle. This is why people prefer to be by themselves. They want their little box where it's comfortable, where they don't have to worry about anything, and they have a computer, they have a laptop, they have a tablet, they have they have multiple gaming consoles, and the only real interaction they have with human beings is via the internet. It's completely indirect, and there are no strings attached. It's also superficial, so shallow, and it's safe. This is the thing here. It's also safe, and I would say that people don't even know any other way to interact with another human being. They only know this indirect, shallow way via the internet, whatever their platform is. When people, they have friends and they want to interact, well, they play multiplayer games, each from their own house, whatever. They don't get together and do shit, And I remember the analog world. This is some boomer shit, okay? I remember the analog world in the early to late 90s, okay, where all of the neighborhood kids, they would just, especially in the weekends, we would all go out. And we would all just play from morning until nighttime. All of the streets were just full of kids. I remember this. Right? We didn't have any fucking Game Boys, or we had a ball, and that's about it. And we had to, we had to have imagination, and we ran everywhere, and we played all of these hide and seek and whatever, right? It was crazy. And people, they just have everything now. People have so much convenience now that they don't have to rely on anything or anyone except these devices and the internet. And I've actually seen certain, let's call them influencers of a certain type of demographic who are like, if I were to be on a deserted island, I would take my PC and my internet connection, and maybe a video game. They don't know anything else. These are the things that give them any sort of pleasure or sense of security, because you see, this is the problem. These kids were raised with a computer, a tablet, a phone, the internet, whatever other device, instead of siblings, friends, family members being around them. They were surrounded by machines, by technology, by gadgets. And this is why they have this relationship, this almost toxic relationship with technology, because it's the only thing that provides any comfort. Okay? I watched cartoons because it was the only thing that provided any sort of comfort or relief. These kids were raised with devices connected to the internet. Now that they're becoming adults or are adults, this is the only thing that they can relate to, because they spent their entire childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood in front of the screen on the internet. The generations after me, post 2000s, they spent their entire existence on the internet, folks. It's mind-boggling. Nobody has a problem with this. I think that is crazy. Because I remember, you see, the first time I had access to the internet was maybe 2003, 2004, and let me tell you, my entire teenage years, because I had access to the internet, was spent on the internet. And now that I look back on it, I'm shaking my head. That was a very bad thing. And nobody said anything, because it was so convenient, because I wasn't making trouble for anybody. I did not have any demands. I wasn't asking questions. I was hypnotized in a trance in front of a screen, and I spent my time like everybody else, watching anime, whatever, playing games, And now that I'm older, I look back on it and I'm just like, that's no way to live. That's absolutely no way to live, of course. Like any other tool, the internet and all of this technology, they can be a plus if you use it properly, but it's everything. It's an addiction. It's a lifestyle. There is no other lifestyle than this. Even when people go out and meet somebody else, they have a phone in front of them. This happened to me. A couple of years ago, I went with somebody for a drink, whatever. I was invited, and this person, I was sitting in front of this person at a table, and this person was like this in front of the phone. And I was just like, well, I'm going to go home. It's, this is not it. I remember that kid that I used to be, and how lonely that kid was. That kid had nobody to talk to. That kid lost himself in cartoons mainly, because it was the only thing that preserved his sanity. And nobody bothered with that kid because it was just so convenient, Why bother parenting and showing a kid the way and just being involved, etc., when you can just leave a kid in front of a screen and it's easy peasy? This is why people seem crazier nowadays. people to me seem crazier nowadays, because instead of having actual interactions, flesh and blood interactions with their parents, their relatives, friends, whatever, they were dropped in front of a screen and see you later, alligator. And these kids had nothing else. And now they're becoming adults or are adults, and it's just, they're cooked. They're cooked. They don't have anything to rely on. This is the only thing that they know. You see, somebody like me, to demonstrate to you just what a boomer I am. I still don't know what Reddit is. I don't know what Reddit is. I don't know why people spend their time there. It seems pointless to me. I don't know what Discord is for. What do you do on Discord? I don't know what any of this is. And I don't know. I do not want to find out. To me, this is a complete and total waste of time. Instagram, TikTok, I don't know any of these things. They're just bizarre to me. I'm old. I come from a different timeline, right? I mean, to me, the 90s, they just seem so far away, a blur. It's like I came with a time machine. It was just so different. To give you another example, these streets in my neighborhood, in the 90s, there was so little traffic, so few cars, that in the winter, these main streets would freeze, and all of us kids would just, skate on these frozen streets, because there was literally no traffic whatsoever. And now you can barely cross a street because there's so much traffic. It's crazy. Okay? So I remember those big ass TVs, CRTVs, and they came with furniture. These big ass TVs, they came with furniture in which they were, encased. They came with furniture, and they had VHS, and nobody knew how to work a VHS. Nobody knew. It was just such complex technology. Nobody knew, but it was almost so alien, and VHS tapes. Man, we used to get one of those blank tapes, and we used to record movies on the television because we didn't have any access to anything. It was what we had access to was what you got on the television. And I remember clearly, we had a bad quality tape on which we recorded Terminator 2, and it was just so bad. But to us, it was a magical moment, because that was the movie. That was one of the best movies ever, and we had a VHS tape, right? A recording. And we had commercials on that tape because, it was recorded via a VHS, And nowadays, people, they don't even know what a CD or a DVD is. Even that is ancient technology. A Blu-ray, like, they don't know a DVD player, huh? Like, I remember those Walkmans, those big-ass Walkmans, and you had to have tapes and batteries. Like, y'all don't know. It was crazy, right? And then you had, instead of a Walkman, you put in a CD, and it was a different time, folks. Back in the day, especially in my neck of the woods, there was no real access. There was no real market to, I'm just going to go there, and we're going to buy movies, and we're going to rent movies. We didn't have cinemas. We didn't have anything here. Okay, we didn't have a place where we went and bought tapes with movies. We didn't have any of that. We only had the television and what the program offered, And we had our TV guides, a physical magazine in which we checked the schedule to see if there was something worth watching. This was it. There was no anything else. Until maybe the early 2000s or mid 2000s. Until then, you were pretty much cooked in terms of so-called entertainment, and the same applied to video games. We had, when it came to video games, we had those old not old. We had those cheap plastic consoles with cartridges, and it was all so cheap, and we only had like Mario and Duck Hunt and Space Invaders. This was it. It was all so cheap and bootleg. Okay, so kids nowadays, they have it so easy in a way. This was the analog world, folks. This was the analog world, and nobody seems to remember it. I remember vague memories of the analog world. It was crazy. If you didn't have anything to watch on the television, the only alternative was for you to go outside and knock on somebody's door and let's go out and play, boy. And that was it. That was it. This was the analog world. And, you know, the kids, the people of my generation, we were raised by the television. There is absolutely no denial. It is a fact. You know, we were the kids who just binge watched Saturday morning cartoons, you know, on Cartoon Network or what, Nickelodeon, whatever. We were this is my generation. These are the people who spent their entire childhood watching cartoons in front of a big ass television that weighed a ton. And now, you know, the problem is that everything repeats itself. But now, everything is so streamlined. Everything now, it's even more convenient. But the same patterns are happening, which is that why would parents bother with actually raising and taking care of their kids when they can just drop a phone or a tablet or a laptop with an internet connection and that's it. You don't have to bother with anything. And now people are wondering why so many kids grow up to be these adults who still live with their parents, who prefer their mother's basement, who play nothing but video games, who watch nothing but anime. You know, of course, the economy has something to do with this as well, but overall, I mean, it's so obvious. This is what happens. These are the results and the conclusions when children spend an ungodly amount of years in front of a screen. It's extremely dangerous. It's probably one of the most dangerous things that could have happened. And it has happened, and it is happening, and it will continue to happen. And as it progresses, humanity will disintegrate one step at a time because people will lose their innate abilities to function. Even now, these younger people, they do not have the ability to think. They do not have the ability to articulate thoughts properly. They'll hit you with a "Hey yo, on me, bruh. On me, bruh. Bruh, no cap, bruh." It's pretty much over, in my view. You know, and all of this, of course, is because, unfortunately, being a real parent is difficult. It is one of the greatest challenges ever. And because so many people are not equipped to be proper parents, they choose shortcuts. In my case, it was just cartoons on the television. The television raised me, but now it's just everything. Just you think that putting your kid in front of a screen and that kid is gaming or whatever constantly, you think that's a good idea because now you have time, you can relax, and you have, as a parent, you have practically doomed your child for a life of unfulfillment, dissatisfaction. These people will never be complete. They will never be whole, and it will get worse and worse. It will aggravate and worsen to a degree that people cannot imagine because of this. All of these people who are furries and have body pillows of anime waifus, and these people who are still bronies, and these people who know nothing but constant gaming, and they get good at gaming. All of these people, some of these people will have kids of their own. And can you imagine the generations of the future, folks? The generations of the future will be specimens that I cannot even fathom. They will be specimens that will know nothing about nothing. They will have absolutely no ability, no skill, no nothing. Okay? And all of this is because parents chose the shortcut, the convenient shortcut, which was just put your kid in front of a screen and they'll shut up. Okay? This is why people should not have kids, because most people do not have the ability, are not equipped to be proper parents. Okay? So when parents nowadays wonder why their kids binge watch anime 24/7 and jerk off to hentai and God knows what else. They're into feet pics. Okay? And they spend their hard-earned money on OnlyFans. It is because they lived and they grew and they were educated by the internet. They spent their entire life on the internet. I was raised by the television, and it had some side effects that were terrible. Okay? But nowadays it's pretty much over, folks. Man, it's over. It's over. And not to be completely negative, when I was watching my cartoons, there were some amazing moments, I had my moments where I was just in a magical, happy, pleasant moment. But in the long run, did it really matter? Was it really that important? It wasn't. The problem was that I, as a dumb, mindless kid, I didn't have anything else. Because nobody taught me actual values, actual principles. Instead of that, they just left me in front of a television and good on you. Our job is done. Okay? And because of this, I was a late bloomer. It took me so much time to just recover from all of that. Bad social skills, whatever. And nowadays I can see, because I was almost a prequel to all of this, right? And because I'm almost an ancestor to what is happening today, so I can see clearly what is happening with all of these children who know nothing else but internet and internet culture. They spend their entire existence on the internet, and they watch anime because everybody is watching anime, and they play and they game because there's nothing else other than video games in terms of culture, and they watch the lamest shows and movies because there's nothing else, because they don't know quality from quantity and etc. etc. So, the internet is a hive in which the hive mindset is prominent. The internet is a hub where the insect mindset is promoted. Be just like everybody else. Repeat the same catchphrases on me. Okay? Repeat the same slang. Don't think for yourself. Don't question anything. Just, the internet is nothing but laughs. The internet is here to distract and divert attention from everything else, and it does a wonderful job with all of its memes. Okay? This is what the internet is. The internet is a weapon specifically invented to dumb down people. Okay? Just like the television was invented specifically to dumb down people. And then before that, the radio, etc., etc. The newspapers before that. Okay? It's something else. When it's something else when you can clearly see what is happening. Clearly, there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that what is happening here is, the great goal of the actual people who run stuff around here is this: to keep people with blinders on, to keep them distracted, and to dumb them down in every way possible, mentally, physically, emotionally. This is what is happening. And these people who are young today, some of them will have kids in the future, and it's just these Gen Alphas and these Zoomers. I mean, sooner than later, some of them are gonna have kids, and oh boy, what specimens they will be! What kind of generation will be in the future? It's crazy. It'll be so comical. You people have no idea what's coming. The future will be something hilarious. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty much it. You're looking at somebody who was raised by the television in the 90s. We did not have anything else. We did not know anything better. We did not have any alternatives, and it was so convenient. I remember when late at night we would catch, maybe we would catch like a good show, a good movie, a good cartoon. We would catch on MTV, we would catch an episode of South Park. We were crazy. We went gaga over that shit. We thought this was a pinnacle moment in history for us. We were, in a way, extremely primitive, It was also convenient. It was also comfortable. And nowadays, pretty much, younger people are they're doomed from the beginning. This is, I'm not trying to be negative, but this is absolutely facts. Absolutely facts. Young people today are doomed from the beginning. And of course, all of these things they are just tools. They are neutral. But it is how people use them that makes them so bad, toxic, etc., so detrimental. It is because people use these devices and the internet for silly, goofy reasons. The fact that people spend so much time, crafting memes. I'm just like, bro, you're wasting your life on this shit for likes and giggles. I don't get it. Maybe I'm too old. I come from a different era, and that era is extinct. Like, I still have a couple of VHS tapes. I still got a few floppy disks. My first computer was one of those big-ass monitors. Never had a DVD player. It's something else. When you come from almost nothing. You see, back in the day when somebody had like a PlayStation 2, we thought that person was a god. Okay? When somebody had like some sort of expensive toy, we thought that kid was a god among men. Now everybody's got a PS5. Who cares? Like, everybody has so many devices hooked up to the internet, and they have so many avenues, so many possibilities, and yet, if you've noticed, it's all so generic, it's all so trivial, it's so trite, it's so whatever, it's meh. People are not happy, people are not fulfilled. Who knows? I wonder why, though. It is because people were taught only this and nothing else. I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong on this, If you come from my generation, if you come from the analog era, tell me in the comments how it was for you, because I remember, I remember when I was in kindergarten, we had a few movies, maybe a Disney movie animated on a VHS, and it was a rarity when my folks would play that shit for me for some reason, and every time they played something on the VHS, it was a magical moment. It was a big reward. It was an hour of magic, right? And now everything is taken for granted. Everything is a commodity, But that's about it. If you enjoy this content, if you want to support your boy, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. If the link does not work, you can search my name Griffith Samsara. Thanks for watching. See ya.